Okay, it's a good thing I'm small.
She got her spot right in the parking lot.
Okay.
Well, we're set, right? We've got Justin and
He's always late.
I have one question about the agenda for the feedback on the draft plan, objectives and goals, is like 11 pages long. Like that could be hours and hours. I'm wondering if we should do half of it today, and then we have the community meeting and the other half in the next meeting. It's,
Yeah, the intent is there's only a few tidbits of it to discuss today.
so
I think
just the
there were.
things- there's a lot
Did
in
it come
there
out?
to discuss.
Yeah. Oh
but-
yeah. There's tons of stuff.
you got this going through the highlights.
Yeah, I think there was in blue. In your copy, did you see the blue?
I did see the blue, but
Yeah.
but I make comments on the board.
No, yeah, fair game, but, and if it comes to it like, gosh, we need to discuss a whole lot more, of course we can extend it to the next meeting.
Okay.
But that wasn't the intent. The intent was, the goals is kind of like, this is the old goals.
Yeah.
Just reconfirm and then, but just all the action items, there's a million action items. So, that's what that was all about.
Okay, it's a lot like.
Yes.
sign off.
All of these.
Why don't we go ahead and call the meeting to order. Apologize for the tardiness. We were being windblown down at the beach. So anyhow, if we could have a roll call, please.
Sure. Commissioner Montmorency? Yes. Commissioner Brzezowski?
Present?
Commissioner Mickey?
Present.
Commissioner Burling?
Present.
Chair Myers?
Present.
We have a quorum.
If we'd stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you very much. Let's see, we have extraordinary business to lead off this afternoon, and I'm going to go ahead and read a city council proclamation. Am I reading this whole thing?
Yeah, just read the whole thing.
Okay, I can read the whole thing. Small print, so here we go. A proclamation of the City Council of the City of Carmel-by-the-Sea proclaiming the week of April 14 through 20, 2024 as National Volunteer Appreciation Week in conjunction with the National Volunteer Appreciation Week. There's a lot of volunteering. Whereas National Volunteer Week was first established in April 1974 by presidential proclamation and is observed the third week of April. And whereas this year's National Volunteer Week is observed April 14 through 2024. And whereas the City of Carmel-by-the-Sea recognizes that the involvement of volunteers is vitally important in augmenting essential public services provided by city departments and our community, and whereas the City Council would like to recognize and thank the efforts of the volunteer groups and individuals that assist the city, and whereas the hours, work, and contributions these groups and individuals donate to the city during events, meetings, storms, village beautification, and village safety are immeasurable and an asset to the city and the community. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that I, that's not me, David Potter, Mayor of the City of Carmel-by-the-Sea, on behalf of the City Council, thank the following volunteer groups that assist the city. Carmel Cares, Carmel Community Emergency Response Team, Carmel Host Lions, Carmel Public Library Foundation, Carmel-by-the-Sea Garden Club, Carmel-by-the-Sea Rotary Club, Community Activities Commissioners, Forest and Beach Commissioners, Friends of Carmel Forest, Friends of Mission Trail Nature Preserve, Friends of Sunset Foundation, Friends of the Harrison Memorial Library, Harrison Memorial Board of Trustees, Historic Resources Board Commissioners, Lester Roundtree Native Plant Garden Committee, Library Volunteers, Planning Commissioners, and last, Volunteers in Police Services, also known as VIPS. That's it.
Okay.
There we go. And we'll go ahead and move on to public appearances. Under the Brown Act, Public comment for matters on the agenda must relate to that agenda item, and public comments for matter not on the agenda must relate to the subject matter jurisdiction of this legislative body. Hateful, violent, and threatening speech is impermissible public comment as it disrupts the conduct of the public meeting. This is a warning that if a member of the public attending this meeting remotely violates the Brown Act by failing to comply with these requirements of the Brown Act, the meeting, then that the speaker will be muted. Members of the public are entitled to speak on matters of municipal concern, not on the agenda during public appearances. Each person's comments shall be limited to 3 minutes or as otherwise established by the commission. Matters not appearing on commission's agenda will not receive action at this meeting, but may be referred to staff for a future meeting. Persons are not required to give their names, but it is helpful for speakers to state their names so that they may be identified in the minutes of the meeting. With that in mind, is there anyone from Chambers that would like to make a public appearance?
Chairman Myers, members of the commission, city staff, my name is Cindy Lloyd. I understand, JC, that this is your last meeting.
It is.
And to honor that, I have brought you something that is very special, and I will give you a little history on it. When my daughter was 12 years old, it was my birthday, and she didn't know what to give me. That was 48 years ago. So she and a little friend went up the hill, and they found this plant growing underneath the fence, and they cut it off and put it in a pot and gave it to me. It was a Shasta daisy. This is a member. This is one of many generations that I've propagated from that original plant, and I would like you to have it in honor of your years of service and our friendship that has developed over the time we were on the CRA board together and just doing stuff. So I applaud you, and I hope you enjoy your time in retirement doing even more stuff with your family, your volleyball, the CRA, and anything else you do. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Cindy. Okay, how many more gifts am I going to get? Anyone else from the public that would like to make an appearance? Doesn't look like it. Oh, well, sorry.
Good afternoon, commissioners. And JC, I want to thank you too for your service.
Appreciate it.
Much appreciated by all of us. What I'd like to talk to you about today is not as positive as a Shasta daisy. It's about the tree list. I think there are some really serious problems for those of you who have not taken the time or the effort, which is substantial, to go through that tree list. And even if you just take a smattering of the trees on that list, you're going to find some real problems. Like the first tree on the list is a Santa Lucia fir, which is never going to grow in our environment down here because it's a high altitude tree. A second problem is that the canopy list has species on it that grow extremely large for a low canopy tree. Am I speaking loudly enough, Sarah? Can you hear me, Sarah?
I didn't hear you.
I was asking you if you could hear me.
I'm having trouble.
I'm sorry. And then if we're concerned about climate change, then no trees requiring special irrigation should be on this list, and there are several of them, like sycamores, birches, and redwood trees. Monterey County has a special priority that they give and insist on native trees be given special priority in their landscape plans. And that's not exactly what we're doing. And so I was wondering why Carmel isn't promoting trees that won't survive, because there are a lot of them on this list. And then if you're interested in diseases that perpetuate trees on this list, well, there are a lot of them, and they particularly attack non-native trees. One of them is the Pinus pineaster, which is a huge problem in South Africa when it was introduced. And it attracts these particular moths. And the moths burrow in, much like, our pitch canker. Moths burrow into the trees. The trees produce a tremendous amount of sap. And then these other funguses and so forth penetrate the tree, and the tree, of course, dies. So they've had a huge problem with that. It's a very invasive species, and it causes a very high rate of extinction in native trees. Another one that's a favorite in Carmel is a Canary Island pine. And this pine has found in a number of places to be extremely dangerous because it produces a fungus that actually can kill people. And I've got 4 of them kind of across the street from me. There are around in Carmel, and so we should be particularly careful not to be perpetuating these kinds of trees. Another is a California sycamore that's been proposed on the list as a low canopy tree, which it really isn't if you look at them around the county, and it needs a lot of water. So my main point to you is I don't know who put this list together, but it needs some serious review by somebody on the staff, and we just simply don't have time for staff to be sitting here going through, all these, trees that are on this list, but somebody better, because they're totally inappropriate, and most of them are not natives. Some are being suggested as coming from Morocco and Australia. So I'm very disappointed in the tree list. I think that the one that we've got in Carmel right now is as good as it gets, with some minor tinkering.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Anyone else from Chambers? Okay.
Actually, just a question. I have some comments on the draft plan. Should I make it when we get to that agenda item, or do you want to hear those now?
We get to that agenda
Great.
item.
Okay.
Thanks. Yep. Perfect. Anyone else from Chambers? Yep.
Good afternoon, Director Herreri, Chair JC, and we are also sorry to see you go. JC is definitely a guy that you can give a job to and he'll get it done. I just work with him on the CRA rummage sale in a very minor way, lending him some cones. But he did an amazing job on that. I had doubts about the whole thing because it was quite a production, but he really did an amazing job, so we're sorry to see you go. And I'd just like to get you caught up on a project which you approved a short time ago, very briefly, the Ocean Avenue medians. Bob probably has something in his report. I haven't looked at it yet, but he'll probably fill you in on more details. But the positive news is we got the boulders on it, 42 of them. Did it in 7 hours with no disruptions. Public Works did a great job of putting out the delineators so that we had the whole street. And the contractor two contractors did an amazing job. And then yesterday we planted all 400 native plants in about 7 hours. That contractor did an amazing job. And right now they're finishing up the irrigation system, and they're doing a great job on that. So we're going to continue on. Justin has lit a fire on this to get the project done as quickly as we can. So we're partnering with the city on making sure that happens. Probably going to take another 6 weeks, I would guess, at the pace we're going. But we're excited. Everybody, nothing but positive comments so far. So if you haven't seen it, run over to Dolores or Dolores and Lincoln on Ocean Avenue and take a look. Thank you very much. One funny story. Do I have time?
Yeah.
I do. Okay. So we sold this as a pollinator pathway, right? And we thought that was true. So we drove Alan's truck up with the trailer, and it had all 400 plants in it, including verbenas that had a little puff on them with purple flowers. And we're sitting there at 6:45 and just looking around how we're going to place the plants. And while we were there, we started noticing that there were some bees around us. And we said, oh, that's interesting. And then we took all the plants and we set them out, all 400 of them. And all of a sudden, Alan looked up and there was a beehive that big, and I have pictures. On the cypress limb directly adjacent to our truck trailer. So we were sitting there. They were just flying around looking for a place to attach. And they said, huh, that looks good. Look at that, all those purple flowers. And so they made a hive. And then we had 8 people, 10 people probably doing all kinds of work. And then we looked up about 11 o'clock and they were gone. They said, it's not as good as we thought. The flowers are gone. Anyway, pretty incredible how nature works and that native plants actually do attract pollinators. So thank you. So.
Thanks for your kind words, Dale, and I know we're all excited to see the project come to fruition. So, yeah. Anyone else from Chambers? Doesn't look like it. Anyone online with their hand up?
Yes. Doug, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello. Oh, good. Okay, this is Doug Curran, and I attended a Zoom meeting with the Public Works Department and Carmel Cares last Friday, and I got to say I was a bit disappointed to hear that the staircase at 12th Avenue was, the repairs for that staircase were not going to happen for approximately a year and a half. And that seems a bit long. I'm wondering if maybe there's something that could be done on an emergency basis, perhaps. Any way to address, we have a busy season, a holiday season coming up, and the beach is returning back to, the sand is coming back. And it just seems a shame that we would have to wait a year and a half to get that done. So that's my only comment. I appreciate the work you all do, and hoping maybe somebody could have some eyeballs on that and make some repairs, perhaps, as I say, on an emergency basis, or maybe just expedite the process. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Doug. Looks like Linda Smith.
Repaired enough when we have 8 or 9
Yeah. Linda, go ahead.
now, and 2.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yep, yes, we can.
Hi. Okay, thank you. I'm sorry I didn't get to meet you, JC, but congratulations on your retirement, and I hope you enjoy every day of it. I just wanted to just kind of start things off by reminding everybody that we live in a really, really special native forest ecosystem on the Monterey Peninsula, one of only 3 stands of Monterey pines. And we happen to live in the one that is the most important one, the mother of the other 2 on the California coast. And and we also live in a town, which is the one city on the peninsula that cherished its Monterey pines and actually built its whole culture around them. So I just wanted to reiterate that, because I think we lose sight of what a precious resource we live in the middle of. And there's been a lot of confusion about Carmel, about whether there were pines here in this part of the forest, and there certainly were. And I just wanted to read you a few items from the past that hopefully will put to rest any doubt that there were Monterey pines in Carmel, but they are not all planted. From Joe Hitchcock, who was an Ohlone Indian, and his roots were Spanish and Ohlone Indian. And he said, when my family moved to El Pescadero in 1894, Carmel was just a long side hill extending down to the sand dunes, which were covered with pine trees and manzanita brush. Much wild game lived there, and rabbits, quail, wild pigeon, and deer were hunted. Occasionally, coyotes and raccoons were seen roaming in the sand. We often saw lion tracks, and once I saw a mountain lion just west of Pebble Beach Gate. Then for Mary Austin, who was reminiscing about her time in Carmel. By the time I got back in 1905, there was a small hotel, the beginning of the present establishment, and not more than 2 or 3 stores and a most delightful bake shop. And practically none of the property had been cleared, but was all grown up in pine and live oak and wild lilac. I lived at the hotel and didn't build until 1911 or 12. I forget the exact date. And then from George Sterling, an article in a 1906 issue of the San Francisco Call by Ida Brooks. George Sterling's house has recently been completed and stands only a short distance northward from the Mission, overlooking the river valley and within hearing distance of the breakers. Beyond the house, in the direction of the village, one penetrates into deep pine forest whose floor is soft to the feet, the soil being very loamy and covered thickly with pine needles. The poet's reasons for selecting this spot for a house are beautifully expressed in the following lines written by him a few days ago. In Carmel pines, the summer wind rings like a distant sea. O harps of green, your murmurs find an echoing chord in me. And then from our city forester, Robert Tate, in 1971. He had been city forester for about a year and a half when he wrote this. The Carmel urban forest is unique, and we must continue to take steps to allow it to remain so if it is to survive as we know it today. It cannot be allowed to take care of itself, as it often has been in the past, because the encroachments and demands we make on it are increasing at an alarming rate. Long before Carmel was a city, most of the area it occupies was covered with trees. Several specific references in the literature point this out. Of course, no accurate tree count was taken to determine the number and type, but I think it could safely be assumed that from a distance offshore, the area which is now bounded by Ocean Avenue east to Monteverdi, then south on Monteverdi to Santa Lucia, was similar in tree cover to most of Del Monte Forest. I've taken ring counts on certain trees in the northeast section of town and found them to be over 90 years of age. This predates the city by 30 or more years. The area west and south of Ocean and Monteverdi was for the most part not forested, but did support scattered trees. The oldest tree I found in this area was just under 70 years of age when it died. And then from Perry Newberry in 1929, it was with a pang of regret that we saw the pine tree next to the post office fall down before the onward march of business progress. From our vantage point in the watchtower, we could look out on the dark green crest of this lonely pine, waving against the blue of the sky, a poignant reminder of the days when all of Dolores Street was part of the virgin forest. The only tree now left in this block is the hoary veteran that guards the portal of one of our real estate companies. When this one is sacrificed to the executioner, Dolores Street will at last be able to live up to its name, the Street of Sadness.
Linda, thank you very much for sharing these individual accounts. We appreciate it. I've got you over time, though, so I'm going to have to close you out and then ask if there's anyone else online that would like to make a public appearance.
There's no hands raised on Zoom.
Doesn't look like it, so we'll go ahead and close public appearances. Oh. Sir, if you'd care to step up, we'd love to have you speak.
Yeah, hi, everybody. Hi. I'm the husband of the lady who just spoke.
Okay.
And it's been my requisition to deliver to you. Are you pizza delivery?
Pizza, perfect.
I need to have your Visa or debit card number before I can complete it.
I think we received this before the meeting.
This is, she was going to hopefully have me to speak.
It's tough to get that in 3 minutes, I know.
Thank you so much for your consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's good reading.
Yeah, thank you.
Sir, did you have any comments or just the distribution?
Just the distribution.
Okay.
I just stand behind my wife's concerns very much. We are a member of that group of people who are profoundly concerned about the modification of this town, which would happen if we pull the pine out of the picture significantly. It's so much the totem plant here. And it also really, Carmel has been contiguous with the whole larger peninsula, which is a Monterey pine forest. And I think we always took pride in the fact that we incorporated that consideration and that it is part of the charm. So we like charm, my wife and I, and a bunch of other people.
Well, thank you again. Appreciate it. Okay, so public appearances have been closed. We'll go on to announcements.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Well, my first announcement is probably my most important, but you've already heard this. So I wanted to thank Chairman Myers for his years of dedicated service, his devotion, his leadership. Did a fantastic job, really, really happy to work with him all these years. We could have gotten you a plaque. We could not get you a volleyball. I was shot down on the volleyball. I didn't think you'd want a plaque. We could still get you a plaque, but I don't know. Didn't if you want a plaque, it's not too late.
I got a beautiful shaft to raise on.
I think you got a much better plan from Cindy Lloyd. But seriously, I'd suggest that we all give JC a round of applause, and maybe a standing ovation.
Ah, come on, please.
Okay, moving on. The City Council reappointed Sarah Berling for another 4-year term. And after this term, she'll only have 5 to go. So we thank Sarah for her continued service. Keep going. That's fantastic. We have a new person who's been appointed by council, and he's in the audience. His name is Hans Buder. He's appointed for a 4-year term starting next month, in June. We'll be meeting, Josh and I will be meeting with him in a couple of weeks to kind of give him an overview of Public Works like we did with Commissioner, most of you actually. And then the first thing at the June meeting, we'll have the nomination of the chair and vice chair. So we'll get that started. I don't want to embarrass Hans, but I saw his application, and Duke, Harvard, and Stanford, but I heard through the grapevine you got an A- once, so I'm not sure. Have to shape up rather. No, seriously, we welcome you with open arms. We think you'd be a great fit for our team, on the commission. We look forward to working with you. Next item, mandatory biannual ethics training per Assembly Bill 1234. Our city clerk, Nova, sent out an email. Hopefully you all got it. This is mandatory. The training, it's a Zoom training on Thursday, June the 13th from 10 to 12. The steering committee members, it's optional. You're welcome, you're encouraged. You do not have to, but the commissioners must, including Mr. Buder. So if you have any questions on that or need Nova to resend it, we'd be happy to do so. Speaking of Nova, I wanted to thank her for filling in Vets on Training today. To appease Nova, we need to end this meeting at 5:30. So, or else.
Anytime you want to come.
Or else I have to watch over Zoom, and that's not going to work.
Or else somebody needs to go watch my kids.
Yes. The others, Commission Secretary Yvette asked about this. Some of the other commissions are now using iPads. We have city-issued iPads. It wouldn't be a gift. It would be to use at the dais here in lieu of hard copies of the agenda. So like the Planning Commission, they have it. They scroll through the agenda. They can click on links and all that kind of stuff. At the end of the meeting, you turn it back in. So you don't take it home with you. You don't, whatever. It's an option. We're encouraging it because it's saving, we're trying to be environmentally friendly. It saves on paper copies. We could start this in June. Just wanted to get a sense if that's something the commission would want to do. Nod, no. Yeah. Yes, okay, well, so we'll do that. We'll start that next month. What's that? A pilot, we'll see. We'll do a pilot next month. And then it's just real quick, wanted to respond to 2 of the people that had public appearances. For Mrs. Billing, she had very valid, good comments about the draft proposed tree list. I think it was like 2 months ago, 3 months ago, 2 or 3 months ago when we launched it. Hey, this is a draft. We asking the community to please review it, mark it up, get a nice bright red pen, mark it up, and turn that into Justin or Tom.
I think they even put it on there. This is a living document. It's supposed to, evolve over time.
Right. Right. So Mrs. Billings' comments are good. And, if you would please do us a big favor to help us, and maybe you already have this, we can make a copy. We want your comments in writing because we have comments from a bunch of other people too. So rather than listening to a bunch of different videos or whatever, trying to get it all on paper and then go through it thoroughly to come up with a final draft. What we have is a preliminary draft to get the ball rolling, okay? And then there was a commenter online about the beach access stairs. If we could expedite it. We opened up 5 concrete stairs and 1 wood stairs over the last couple months using emergency coastal development permits. So we did all that we could through the emergency permitting process. The stairs at 10th North and 12th suffered structural damage. We cannot, it's beyond something city staff can do under emergency development permit. The reason it will take a year and a half, and quite frankly, that's optimistic. We have to get permits from the California Coastal Commission, the Marine Sanctuary. We need a coastal development permit. We might need permits from the Water Quality Control District. Heaven forbid, I shouldn't say that, Fish and Wildlife Service. So we don't even know the number of other permits we need. The environmental permit process is going to take the long lead time. We haven't designed them yet, although we're ready to launch a request for proposal to hire a firm to design the repairs. The design's going to go quick. Construction will go relatively quick. The environmental permit is the bulk of that 1 year, and that could be a year and a half unto itself. That's why it takes so long for 10th North and 12th, but it is what it is. All the other beach access stairs are open. Also, the beach access ramps on scenic south of 8th has been closed ever since the winter of 2023. We just put more post and cable railing around it because people were accessing the beach. It used to be a 14-foot drop-off. They created some kind of little path, although they're exposing our irrigation lines, our wiring, our dry weather diversion channel. So they're making some mess. So we roped it off. We're going to backfill it. But please, if you know of anyone who's using that unauthorized beach access ramp, that's not how you get to the beach. You got Del Mar and you got 7 or 8 other beach stairs. You don't have 10th North or 12th. And that's all for my announcements.
Okay, thank you very much and appreciate the sentiments. All right, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are routine in nature and do not require discussion or independent action. Members of the commission or the public may ask that any items be considered individually for purposes of commission discussion and/or for public comment. Unless that is done, one motion may be used to adopt all recommended actions. We have 2 points to consider: the April 11th, 2024 meeting minutes, and then the confirmation of the agenda for the May 22nd, 2024 community meeting for the Urban Forest Master Plan. Anyone care to make a motion or open up for discussion? Chance to review the agenda.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Okay, so it's been first and seconded.
Okay. Commissioner Montmorency? Commissioner Brzezowski?
Yes.
Commissioner Mickey?
Yes.
Commissioner Burling?
Yes.
Chair Myers?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, so we'll go on with our orders of business. Orders of business are agenda items that require city council, board, or commission discussion, debate, direction to staff, and/or action. The first of our orders of business is the consideration of the additional 1,000 feet of barrier railing along scenic pathway, and the consideration of widening the pathway, and also consideration of addition of 2,000 feet of erosion prevention redwood borders along the edge of the pathway. Whew, a lot. All right.
Good afternoon, Chairman Myers, commissioners, staff. My name's Tom Ford. Just going to go over a big picture of this, and then I believe Dale Byrne, our partners of Carmel Cares, is going to come up and have a slideshow. The overview is that there's this, as Commissioner Chair Myers had just said, this is essentially 3 parts. There is another 1,000 feet. The first part is another 1,000 feet of barrier rail, the same kind that we did last year. The second part is widening the pathway by removing the 4x4 wooden stretches of wood on the ground. And the third is that redwood border. The projection that we have for what we're proposing this afternoon is that it would fall well under the $200,000 limit that we have, $100,000 from the city, $100,000 from Carmel Cares. This project in its entirety, as is on the paper, would fall below that number. Just hitting on the key points here. I think Dale will elaborate regarding the purpose of the perimeter border. I believe it's pitched as being erosion deterrent, but I thought Dale might be able to chime in on that a bit more. At the bottom, towards the bottom of the second page, there's a paragraph or a couple bullet points that say requirements and costs. That's a lot of the meat of what would go into this path widening. And the purpose of widening the path is that with a lot of foot traffic, there's often narrow parts, and that's broadly the purpose of why we're looking into this. A matter to be discussed is regarding the Superintendent of Public Works, Rob Culver's comments about how he believed the best way to approach this would be to have the DG pathway be flush with the top of the redwood border. There's multiple ways to do that. It doesn't mean that you have to, well, it's not up to me. I'm not an engineer, but there are multiple ways. You can add DG on top of it. You can put down you can instill the border lower into the existing DG such that it comes close to being flush. You can add DG on top of it, a small layer to level out what it is right now. There's several ways of approaching that, but that is a matter still to be worked out. And I think, and an important note is that this does not require, neither of these require a coastal development permit. However, each of these matters would be subject to an encroachment permit that we would submit to the city. That's all I've got. If Dale would like to...
I have a question for...
Oh, pardon me.
When would this work commence and when would it be complete?
That's a good question. I don't want to...
I just asked when it would commence, start, and when would it be complete? I'm just anticipating that we're coming into high traffic summer, people using the path, that's all.
Sure. I don't know. One of the details that is to be worked out, I was assuming that you're referring to June, July, and August when we'll have high foot traffic. Certainly something to address and incorporate into our plans. But yeah, as long as we consider that, I think that we can come up with a good timeline.
Hey, Tom, on the point by Mr. Carver as it relates to his concern with it not being flush, I'm reading that the reason is for allowing the runoff. Correct. So when it's rained, so was he taking into consideration the different types of materials that might go down? Has he seen the same examples that we were shown today where there are 4 different potential uses?
Yeah, good question. He has not seen the 4. However, when him and I had sat down, the crux of our conversation was that there is different levels of porosity, is I think the word. Each of the 4 or 5 different kinds, can absorb water in a different in different quantities, in different amounts. There's 2 parts to this. Mr. Culver wanted it to be flush as well as having a 1% to 2% grade that slopes towards the western edge, towards the water. And his concern was that if the boards are protruding several inches above the DG, then that might lead to pooling of water. But again, that depends on what kind of DG would be there. If we're keeping the current DG, Mr. Culver had thought that there would be pooling of water. But Dale Byrne had proposed, adding a bit of DG on top of it. So a couple of considerations there, but that was primarily Mr. Culver's concerns.
Okay, and last question. Today's example that on the boards that we looked at, were those were 2x6s or are those 2x8s, 2x6s? 6, okay, got it. That's all I had. Anyone else? Okay, thanks, thank you.
Left and right should work.
Okay. Good afternoon again. Dale Byrne, Carmel Cares, project manager for this project, and assisted by Shirley Moon, who has been instrumental in determining the vision for this project and also is heavily involved in the implementation itself. Shirley had a slide presentation she put together, I think because we probably are going to cover the material pretty thoroughly. I'm just going to go ahead, and I think what might be good is for Shirley to work with me to put together a comprehensive presentation after we get this approved and we're well on the way to the Forest and Beach Commission about the last 4 years of what she has accomplished on the pathway. It's pretty impressive. I'm sure all of you have seen the results. So let's get underway, and I will answer the question about the 1% to 2% slope and the boards and why they're sticking up 3 inches currently, because I think we talked about that in the tour. If you weren't in the tour, you'll get most of the information we covered there. Also, if you haven't looked at the write-up that was part of the package, there are a lot of pictures that we presented in there. I think it explains better than actually I'm going to explain because we have limited time. So you should take a look at that if you haven't, public and also the commissioners. Thanks.
No.
Here, if you just give me the arrows to point. I can move over there, that's fine. So, since Shirley's presentation isn't here, I'm just going to give you a step back in time because I think it's good to put this into context of why we're doing this. So if you go back to July of 2020, when Shirley and I got involved with the pathway, Carmel Cares actually started as a corporation in October of that year, but we were already pulling weeds starting in July, and that's when we started having our public works meetings as well, every other week. You couldn't see the ocean for maybe 30–40% of the pathway, and as Shirley could attest, the original vision was that you could see the ocean 360 or 180 degrees the entire length of the pathway. So one of her first goals was to return that view, and as you can see in the lowercase, that was just June 2022. It might have even been the end of 2020, but I was conservative. You can see that we returned the view, and all along the pathway except just north of 13 where some cypress trees have fallen down and haven't been removed, you can see the ocean. So we also along the way got some approvals from the Forest and Beach Commission, thank you, to make some improvements. We did a prototype first at 13th for the median island, and then the prototype, you can see those stones there, and you can see that it used to have a wood border railing around it. And then we did the granite stones. The reason I'm showing you this is because this is something we'd like you to approve, but not fund today. And you'll see in another slide where that is. I think it's beautiful, and we get comments all the time about how much people like it. So I'd like to thank your partnership in doing that. So in May of 2023, this is what the border rails look like. I have like 20 different pictures of different issues like this, but it wasn't pretty. I'm not going to dwell on that. We don't like to dwell on the past. So Tim Mallory worked with Shirley and developed a model. Tim Mallory, by the way, is the guy that installed for Clint Eastwood all 5 of the wooden stairways, and it's nice to have him on our team, and he's already made 4 significant safety improvements on the pathway over the last 4 years. So he did this prototype himself and installed it, and that became the model that we got the original phase 1 project approved with. And then we got approval and we did it. So the project along the way was run smoothly by Shirley on site. I came by an hour or two a day, but she was there 8 hours a day the entire time. How long did it take, Shirley?
7 weeks.
7 weeks. We did 1,200 feet in the end, actually, because there were some areas where we went a little further than we thought because just the way it worked out. And I'd like to thank the city for paying for all the materials. We predicted it was going to cost $100,000 and we were going to share that 50-50. We ended up, Carmel Cares ended up paying $58,000 for labor. We didn't charge for any of the project management, project planning, on-site traffic management, so the value of what we provided was probably more like $80,000. But the city did provide the materials, the bolts, the lumber. We sourced the lumber, but it was an excellent partnership and the project went smoothly, never had any problems. So this is an example of what it looked like in September over south of the Santa Lucia stairways. That's an area that we have cited for a native plant garden at some point. I'm showing you this because that's an example where we replaced post and cable, and that's one of the things that we're going to do in this next phase. I think it came out beautiful. Hopefully you do too. And that obviously wrapped around and created this area where the Lloyd's Memorial is. So looking further north, where we just walked, in July of 2020, that's what it looked like. And that's actually a good positive picture of July 2020 because a lot of it was either missing or had fallen over. And it stayed that way till we came along in July of 2023 and started our project. That's a similar area. I've got it's not on this one. So that's just another example of what it looked like as we completed it. But there's more to do on the pathway. We've got, in addition to this project, we have a vision of making it more handicap accessible by replacing as much of the DG as we can afford as a city and as a city support group. We also have a project envisioned to add 2 new parking spaces and fix the area in front of the restrooms, which are totally not ADA accessible at this point. It's very rough for even people that aren't handicapped. And you can see there on the left that there's a lot of space between that border rail and the fence. And also in the bench there, you see that it's sort of an awkward way that it sort of goes around the bench, and we're going to solve that problem with this project. Current situation is, among other things, the surface is uneven because it's in some cases 36 years old. Severe erosion and bluff movement is taking place. You can before we replace the current landscape barriers, some of them are leaning like this, and the reason they're leaning is it's sliding into the ocean, into the beach. Which we're not going to be able to prevent, but we can slow it down a little bit. There's also erosion taking place, as you saw today on our tour. In some cases, it's down 10 inches, which means all of that dirt, sand, and whatever it was made out of, DG, has gone down the hill and onto the beach. The pathway is too narrow in some places, and you can see that, and people are walking in the street. We're going to try to eliminate that. And there are also lots of trip hazards. There are fewer now because we've fixed parts of it just north of 13th. So the phase 2, as Tom went through, I won't dwell on this much, but we're going to put 1,000 feet roughly of new redwood barrier rails. It's high quality, almost clear, reclaimed redwood from Northern California, same supplier as before. And then it's another phase as defined in your document, but it's put a 2x6 baseboard. The 1,000 feet of new redwood barriers consists of a 6x6 post, which is custom milled to sort of have an old world look, and then a 2x8 cross rail, which is milled to a very smooth finish so that it lasts longer and doesn't give people splinters. Part of this is to replace all the post and cable. As you see there, that's in the northern part. We're also going to replace the 4x4, or remove the 4x4 borders, which are 36 years old. And those have become tripping hazards. In some cases, there have been The rebar that's used to nail them down is sticking up, so we have to go around and hammer it back in because that could cut somebody's foot. And some areas aren't like this. Some areas won't have a border fence and won't have a rail, and we will deal with those individually prior to doing the DG, but it won't require any materials. In and amongst the project, as has been defined so far, we also have been putting off for, how long, Shirley? 2 years? Replacing the signage, which is in, putting it nicely, very poor condition and embarrassing. So we did replace, actually, we didn't replace, they were missing. There was rebar sticking out of concrete where those mahogany marquees and some beautiful signage that Shirley designed and had manufactured. So we're planning on using 8x8 posts, and that's being paid for in this project, to replace all the existing signage with a consistent look, similar to this, very discreet, calm, simple, made on material that will last for a long time, and on redwood posts that will last for a long time and are expertly machined. We're also going to remove and move sprinkler heads and the quick connects to the other side of the fence, so they're not tripping hazards, and they're also functional and available to us to do watering. As part of this, there's no cost for this because Carmel Cares is paying for it and doing all the labor. We're going to repair the irrigation system. We've already done some of that and replace the irrigation controller down at 8th Avenue, fix the connection between the pump station down at Del Mar Beach and that controller at 8th Avenue. We've attempted it several times to date, and we haven't been successful, but we are going to be successful this time. So Shirley's going to conduct a complete analysis, and she's already done a lot of this, the signage, and then develop signage, and we will share that with you as we move along. Oh, the picture's missing, but there's a picture there. We're also going to refresh the DG. I believe that Tom funded that with $20,000 in this phase. So roughly, we're going to do what we can with $20,000, which we could do quite a bit. And we're paying for the labor, so that's really a $40,000 project. But we will need more to do the entire pathway. But we'll use good discretion on how we're investing that $20,000 to accomplish probably the vast majority of what we need to do with this current project. We're also would like to get approval today to install granite borders around the planting areas, and I didn't point that out today, I'm sorry. Wherever there's a red, that's what that picture showed actually, wherever there's a red curb area, which there are a lot of, we plan on eventually putting a stone border like we have at 13th around all those planter areas to keep people from walking through the plants that we're going to plant. Just to make it clear, this is a planting area, and we'll put the little sign initially that please don't walk on this. But it's also going to be absolutely beautiful and really set off the whole pathway. Only where the red areas are, and there are defined planting areas. In general, the concept is everything else is going to be DG and smooth and handicap accessible, not ADA, but walker, so there aren't any tripping hazards for anybody. Did that adequately describe that, Shirley? Okay. So you all saw who went on the tour, there are currently 4 samples, but tomorrow there will be 6 samples. And I would encourage you to go and look at the other 2 and give them a few days to harden. And then we're going to have Shirley do a thorough analysis of it and select which one is the best. And if you like, I could send an email out to the commissioners so you know what we're thinking and get some feedback if you have any other alternatives. Is that legal, Bob?
Please send it to Tom. Tom will take care of it.
So I'll send it to Tom, and Tom will distribute if he wants. So Tom, you're involved. You just got assigned a decision-making role in this. Okay.
We'll give him something to do.
I would say, I'm not going to say anything more about the different products you saw. I'm just going to run through this really quickly. This took a lot of thought. Shirley and I walked it probably 8 times, and we think this is the best solution. There are probably a couple places that we probably would like to do this, but we designed the project to fit exactly in with the amount of money that we have to spend in this year's budget. So maybe in the future we might do another 200-300 feet, but this is pretty complete implementation. So I'm just, this is in your package, but in some cases we're doing this because we have donors who said, I'll pay for it, so that's nice. But not usually. And this is the post and cable right before the Santa Lucia restrooms. That's a long stretch. But that's also an area that's going to be absolutely beautiful when we're finished because it's just such a popular area. This is one that Shirley and I kicked around a little bit. There are 2 8x8 areas down south, just north of Martin Way, that we left the last time. They're not in terrible shape, but our thinking was, since they're fairly short, there's 48 feet, or 48 and 24 feet, it's like 70 feet. While we're at this, let's just eliminate all of the old material, because at some point you're gonna have to come back and replace it. And while we're doing this, let's just make everything south of Santa Lucia new. So it's just pristine. So it came out to 932 feet. We're rounding it up to 1,000 feet. This has the 6x6 and the just has the 2x8 and the 6x6 posts. It was split into 2 different projects for cost purposes. This also has the 8x8 posts, which aren't free. That's a lot of material. And there are 15 of them in here, which will be enough, we think, to do all the signage on the entire length of the pathway. So that comes to about 40,000. One thing, I didn't get a draft of this presentation until it had gone public, but one thing I thought of after I saw it was that it does not include tax or any price increases that could happen because things can go up. Price increases aren't going to be a problem because I'll just get the supplier to take an in-kind donation if the price has gone up. He's also giving us better quality material, and he's taken an in-kind donation for that. So this material should cost at least 50% more than is on here for the quality that we're getting. So we're gonna have to figure that out. I think we can still squeeze in with the amount of money. I think it's 88,000 that's left. Yeah. So I think we're still good, but we'll figure out a way to make that work. This is the other side of this, which is the 2x6 boards that go along the bottom and the stainless screws for that. And we're not using the bolts. They started doing that when they did the pilot, and I nixed that. So there's stainless screws that are invisible, you can't see. That's supposed to be 20,000 of DG. I don't think it's just $20 of DG, right? 20,000. Okay. So that added up to about 40. Again, that doesn't include tax, and it doesn't include transportation, and it doesn't include the milling charges. But again, I think we can still get this in for 88, and I'll make sure that we do. So the total with tax and delivery is 78 plus 7,200 plus 2,000. So you can see that's really close to 88,000. The labor, which is Carmel Care's side of it, is 3,000 plus 60,000. Plus, it's gonna, I didn't put on here the irrigation. We've already invested 6,000 in that so far, and we're gonna probably invest another $10,000 in fixing the irrigation system and all of that related things, plus our time in terms of managing the project. So next year budget requirement, let's just say you approve this and then we do it, and I'll talk about timeframes. Then next year, if we're going to refresh the DG portions which weren't carried in that $20,000, we're going to need to ask for some more money. I think the strategy is like mid-year budget request, budget review, is that what it's called? Mid-year. We're not doing it now, let's just say that. The only issue with that is traditionally Carmel Cares has used our matching funds concept to get the city to do things they might not otherwise have done. If it's a mid-year budget review, I'm not sure my board's gonna approve that because we're just going and doing a city project. So that's the risk the city takes, because sometimes I get them to do what I want, and I'm going to be retiring on the board shortly, so I'm going to be an executive director of sorts and have other people making decisions. So it's something to think about. I'm on the city side, by the way, all the time. funds to implement granite stone surrounds. We don't have any money for that. It's not inexpensive. That being said, Shirley and I are going to work with our contractor to do a mass production mode. It was custom last time we were doing the stones just to do the 13th. When we do this, once we decide we're going to have it done in a mass production shop, the cost will be less than half of what it was the first time. We're also going to end up needing plants and the installation of those plants and some irrigation components as we get the irrigation system working, and this is all installed. And that's an exciting part, and it's not that expensive to do that. So here's what we're here today to ask you for. We'd like you to approve the project exactly as defined in this presentation, unless you have any questions and would like to make adjustments. We have the funds for that, so it's pretty easy to ask you to approve the project when we have the money already on both the labor and the materials. We already have the materials supplier. I've already got him prepped. He's ready to move quickly as soon as, I'm going to basically text him as soon as you guys approve this today. And he's got all the materials set aside, and he's ready to start the milling process. Project definition, management, traffic control, and all installation will be provided by Carmel Cares at no cost to the city and has been approved by our board of directors. Shirley's in, correct? As a volunteer to help manage it. I always have to check because she is a volunteer and so am I. I'm in. And we'd also like to have you approve the concept for the granite surrounds so that we don't have to come back to you again and to do DG pathway as we get budget to do the rest of the pathway. Bob was insistent, and I thank him for that, in putting all this at once so we don't have to keep coming back when it's all the same project. So that's the end of this. Timing, we're ready to start right away. I heard you say, Bob, the other day that this has to go back to the council for approval, but I don't understand why. Okay, so that wasn't clear.
No, it does not. It's already approved for funding.
Okay.
We need to, if the commission approves this, process the encroachment permit and start. So,
but that doesn't have to go back to the council.
No.
Okay, so the
You're done with
encroachment permit,
council.
Sullivan turns around quickly. So
as long as
once you approved, go ahead.
Yeah, as long as we're under the budget that's already set, the 100,000, which we already spent, whatever number.
Yeah.
As long as we're under that and we process the encroachment permit, we're good to go.
Okay, that's great news. So if this gets approved today, I'll text the supplier and he could have we're going to start with the 6x6s, obviously, because that's the most difficult part. We could probably be starting on this within 2, at the outside 3 weeks. And then they'll just start knocking off. We'll either start south or start north, and we'll just keep knocking it off until we're done. We proved last year during peak periods, I thought, correct, Shirley? Sorry to keep looking at Shirley, but she's the boss. It was busy. So we can manage this project traffic control wise, even during peak periods. And it's actually a good thing because we put up our signs for fundraising, and the more people there are, the more money we get donated. And some people have donated $10,000 at a time walking by, not right there, but from their donor advised fund. So Shirley's going to probably disagree with me because we have an honest discussion often, but I would think we could finish this project in 2 months. Correct? 2 months? You think we could? She said yes, I think. 2 months? 2 months to completion once the first wood arrives.
Of the landscape area?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, okay. So we're committing that we're going to shoot for 2 months, starting whenever the first shipment arrives. And that's the end of my presentation. Any questions?
I have one question,
Yes.
Dale, just on the concept for the granite landscape, the funds that you want to come back for. I heard the flag on that as it relates to the timing. Do you have any sense of how much, what the budget is for that next phase in the future would be?
With the DG or with the granite surrounds?
With your slide, you had one slide that you said, I'm going to come back to you in the future on these 3 bullets.
Yes.
Do you have a sense of what the anticipated funding requirements are for that?
I'll know on the DG after we spend the $20,000 and we do the labor. I'm thinking if we pick either the combination product you saw today, mm-hmm. or the product, the stabilized from Vineyard Rock, I think it's going to be a lot less than we were thinking. Because once you get started, I mean, we would go into mass production mode and just go from one end to the other if we're doing the whole thing. Obviously, the leadership, Carmel, by the way, we funded $5,000 to that project today, and the city has agreed. Can I say that, Bob? Okay, the city has agreed to pay for the materials. So they're fully funded, and they want to start their project on Monday, and we're trying to slow them down. It's sort of a unique situation, isn't it, Bob? We're telling them to slow down. So they're going to be doing their project, and that will be the first example of whatever new DG Shirley picks and you approve will go right there. So we're going to get to see it before any other area is done. And their project, they want to get it done in 30 days, which is pretty exciting. That's a project we wanted to do for the last 3 years. So if I had to pick a number out of my hat to do the whole thing, 50,000 for the granite. It could be less. I mean, again, once you say go, it's a lot cheaper if we have one motion. We just start and go. It's when you have to start and stop. You have to get your crews back that it's a real mess. So it's that magnitude.
Right. I just heard your comment that you'll come back and that you want to, I guess what I would just ask is that the work you all do is so fantastic that come back as soon as you know the budget and when you think it's optimal for the funding on the Carmel Care side, right? Your comment about
Yes.
being off the board or,
Yeah.
I just think we want to make sure that we don't miss the chance to
Yeah, well,
optimize the Carmel Care's contribution on that
I
follow-on
floated
project.
the opportunity with board approval to say, let's just, like we did this year, let's put a chunk aside, knowing we're going to do it at some point, and then we can get the commitment to match. That wasn't accepted at this point. We're not done yet. The budget hasn't been decided.
Right.
Shirley and I have gotten all these other ones approved at the very last meeting twice now, 50 first and then 100, which is very nice of the council to be flexible in that regard. I mean, if I had to suggest an idea for the city, I would say put 50 and then we'll match 50, but I don't do the budget.
Are there any other questions for Dale? Commission? Now, open this up to public. Right?
I have one question for Dale.
Please.
You mentioned once you get started, all the lumber is in place, roughly 2 months to do the edge boards.
Yes,
What about the time to do the barrier rails?
same thing. It's all
Is
done
that
at the same time.
the same
Yes.
concurrent 2 months?
Yeah, we're going to put all the
That's-
for each area, we'll put all the 6x6s in, then we'll put the 2x8s on, and then we'll put the 2x6s. That gives us time for the
Okay, so
supplier to
once
get
you
a
get
supply
going,
chain
roughly
picked
2
up.
months.
Yeah, and then he's
barring
just going
any-
to keep, he'll ship enough 6x6s in maybe 2 weeks to do the first stretch, which Shirley and I will decide based on what we feel like. And then the 2x8s will show up, and then the 2x6s will show up, and then we'll repeat that cycle over and over until we're finished.
Okay.
But he's got the material set aside. I mean, he's not having to go out and look for redwood logs up in some Indian reservation up in Crescent City. It's sitting in his yard up in Crescent City. And that's where this material comes from. They're huge redwood logs that he cuts down and makes into pieces, and we're taking this stuff towards the center.
Mr. I have 2 comments on it before we open up to the public.
Okay.
One is to clarify, it wasn't specifically spelled out in the subject, but the stone edging was previously approved by the commission. It's integral to edging, it's integral to what work they're doing. So some of Dale's slides talked about doing some of the stone edging. I would suggest that your motion, approve or deny or whatever, change, consider the stone edging. There was also some comments about signs. Signs is a different animal. We have not seen the specific, I know Shirley's been working on it. That's a bit premature to approve signage today. That has to go through a planning department review. It's right on the coast.
Yeah.
There's a lot more sensitivity in signs, as we heard from remember last year we had one sign and that really went haywire. So this is like a whole lot of signs. So everything that was discussed with the exception of signs should be what is in the purview of the commission to review and approve today.
But as far as I know, all you're approving today is the 15 8x8 posts, so we don't have to come back and acquire the material that the signs are going to be on. That's the only thing that's in this proposal. We worked in the last go-around with the signs that are on the trash enclosures. That was a partnership between Shirley and Brandon directly.
Okay, just to be clear, we're not approving the signage themselves, just the
Correct.
post, sure.
Correct.
The materials, sure.
That's all you're approving today.
Okay, all right.
And Shirley will determine what kind of process she thinks is needed to, it's a lot of signs. She's already done a package and she could forward that to you. It's like 25 signs, different ones. And I'm sure there are even more if we really dug into it. But we're gonna have to figure out how do we make that simpler, easier to understand, more effective, because what we have is obviously not effective. And then, you know, we have our every other week meetings with Public Works, so that will be a subject coming up here shortly that you can guide us on how we should do that. And if you want to be involved as a commission, which it might be fun, we can come back here and maybe you have an ad hoc committee that you work with Shirley on. I know Shirley likes to move quickly, but I think you do too. And I appreciate that, your comment about keeping things moving. And I appreciate Justin's encouragement for us to move quickly on the Ocean Avenue medians. It feels good to get things over with and move to the next project.
We probably have some volunteer laborers anyway. Yeah, so from the commission.
You will.
Sure, I know. That's what I
Here we
thought.
go.
On the medians,
No, down on the pathway
Yeah.
when it's needed.
we don't need any help on our project, thank you.
Okay.
This is, no, this
I
is
know he says that tongue in cheek.
not on this one. This is serious construction. If you were down there seeing what they're doing, it's serious.
Yeah.
We use professionals when professionals are needed and
No,
required, and are, because we're very much about safety, and we don't want people getting hurt. Where we will need help, if I can say this in the middle of this presentation, is we're building a team of 12 people to become the watering team for the Ocean Avenue medians, because even though we're putting in irrigation, there are tiny little plants and you can't trust that the irrigation is going to hit them from day one. So we're going to be consistently making sure that all those plants that we paid a lot of money for are going to be taken care of with the gator watering or hand watering with the hose bibs that are on the medians. So if any of you would like to volunteer to be a gator driver, we have 4, and we also have about 6 people from Kelly Burke's downtown detail team that are chomping at the bit to get involved. And we'll also need people forever partnering with Justin's team to do maintenance, because we are not, when we do a project, we own the maintenance forever along with the city if the city has a budget for it. So we will need people to go out and trim and cut, and we're going to have to get compost and spread the compost and all that forever, fertilizer.
All right.
So
Thanks, Dale.
We're taking names here.
I might just bring some cookies and lemonade to those
You're retiring.
professional workers.
You're
How about
retiring
that?
from the
Dale, you were
That is
Dale, you were
true.
about to get the golden buzzer
So much.
until
Shirley.
Can I just?
Shirley's traffic control, and if Shirley wants more volunteers for that, she can recruit directly.
Got it. Just for clarification on the stone edging that you mentioned, so we approved stone edging for the.
Yeah, I believe it was like a year ago or so. There was a site visit. You approved it. It was done just as a pilot, maybe in a few places.
We approved the
But it's-
pilot. And
Right, and it seems like this is part of this.
So this would be the
this
opportunity
phase.
to
So just wanted
include
to
that beyond the pilot.
Include it to the extent that the budget is available and they can do it.
That's the picture on the right.
So I just wanted to
Yeah.
distinguish that from the signs, which maybe we can get the materials, but we need to go through a process to get those.
Got it. Just want to make sure I got that correctly. Okay, well, thanks. Oh, sorry, please.
Can I just ask a quick
Yeah.
question? Thank you, Dale, Shirley, and everybody who's involved in this. I'm excited. I use this trail almost daily, so I'm excited for this. Just wanted to ask you a quick question about, are we going to come back then to the different decomposing granite mixes to discuss the choice, or is that part of this?
At this point, you're trusting.
Just trusting that you guys-
Shirley, me, Tom,
Are good
Bob,
issues, okay.
Rob Culver, to have discussions probably at our Friday meeting.
And that will be part of the encroachment permit process.
Okay, so that's part of, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, if we have doubts and we need help, certainly we could come back, but if we do that, it's going to delay.
We trust you. I just wanted to check to see if
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
part of it. We'll go walk by and see the other 2 samples, when we go
Yeah.
next, but, okay,
You'll see the samples shortly.
Okay.
They're probably there right now.
probably. Okay.
Okay, thanks, Dale. We'll go
That
ahead
was it.
and
Thank you, Dale.
Thank you.
we'll go ahead and open it up to public comment, and we'll start first here in chambers. If there's anyone in chambers that would like to come up and speak to this particular topic. Okay.
Thank you, Chairman Myers, member of the commission. My name is Cindy Lloyd, and staff, excuse me. I want to publicly thank Shirley Moon for doing what was really above and beyond her duties in the last barrier railing installation. She called me up and said, Cindy, would you come down? I'd like to go over placement of the railings in front of your parents' benches, which is at that little projection at the foot of Santa Lucia. When, excuse my mouth, I had surgery on my throat on Monday and I'm having a little trouble speaking. The first bench was given by the city council in memorial to my father, who died mayor pro tem at the time of his death. And the second bench was given in honor of my mother when she died, as from Carmel Heritage, because she was a founding member and considered the unofficial historian for Carmel. So that's become the family meeting place. It's called Let's Meet at the Benches, and we all know where it is. So Shirley was really, really nice, and we talked about placement. We changed the angles. I'm sure it cost more money. It certainly did take more labor to do that, but the members of my family appreciate that very much. And I want to say one good thing about Sarah Burling. Oh, I could say a lot of good things about Sarah. But Sarah is the one who told me that my parents' benches are there in perpetuity. Rather than being recycled every 10 years, as other benches are, when they were put in for life. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Cindy. Anyone else from chambers? Okay, it doesn't look like it. How about online? Does anyone have their hand up?
There's no hands raised on Zoom.
Okay, we'll go ahead and close public comment and bring it back to the commission for discussion. So the direction is to provide direction and/or approve what's been presented. Would someone like to open it up?
I'm happy with what was approved. With what was presented. I'd like to make a motion to go ahead and approve the plan that Dale Byrne just gave to us.
I second it.
Do we need to make a friendly amendment, adding in the stone edging piece?
It wouldn't hurt. It'd probably be good to clarify for the record.
Right, so, sorry. Just want to make
I'm sorry, I thought that was.
make a
that's okay.
friendly
No,
amendment that, would you like to do
I
it?
thought you said we'd already decided on that a year ago.
Well, what was decided, at least the way it was, Bob said, was the pilot program had been
Let's do it
decided
again.
upon.
It wouldn't hurt to do it again.
Okay.
So the plan as presented, including the adoption of granite rock edging around the landscape planning areas on the pathway.
Does that work?
Yeah.
A joint motion.
Yes.
Well,
All right.
I've run the amendment to that and seconded.
Okay.
Who seconded?
Commissioner
Actually-
I'll second
Montmorency,
No, she did the amendment.
I did the amendment
Oh,
and JC
okay,
seconded.
sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm trying to keep up.
Commissioner Montmorency. Yes. Commissioner Brzezowski,
Yes.
Commissioner Mickey,
Yes.
Commissioner Burling,
Yes.
Chair Myers.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, excellent. Moving right along with our orders of business with just an hour and 35 minutes left, or else. Let's see what we can do here. Now we will receive a presentation to reconfirm the goals of the Urban Forest Master Plan and review and provide direction on certain action items.
Commissioners, thank you. So in this process of us and Davey working collaboratively with you and the community to develop the Urban Forest Master Plan, as I've received the draft and been going over it, they've also provided a clear document that I wanted to, show you again what the goals are and implement the kind of high-level structure of the plan that really, I feel it aligns a lot with the kind of takeaways that Commissioner Brzezowski kind of gleaned from the what do you call it?
Survey.
Survey, sorry. So I think this is a really good, encompassing list of, a plan, again, for, in the next 40 years, what the city wants to achieve and do. So I'm just going to start with kind of the high-level sections. They broke it down into priorities and goals, and then action items, or goals, priorities, and action items. So the goals and the big picture stuff is, first, proactively and efficiently manage public trees. That kind of speaks for itself, with subcategories in terms of a resilient public tree resource. As the public trees we have, we want to keep them healthy and strong and surviving as long as they're viable. And that also, takes into account the next section, risk management and emergency response, to really go forward and develop a set risk management plan, tree evaluation, kind of like we do the inventory, to kind of go through the city and systematically assess the trees that are in poor condition, or before they get to very poor, they die, and just proactive forest management to take out the sick and dying trees, and keep planting new trees, so we establish an uneven aged multi-height canopy, which is really important to keep the forest growing, so it's not just newly planted 5-foot trees and 85-foot trees, because when those 85-foot trees either die or fall, then we're left with 5-foot trees, and it's not the overarching forest canopy that we're looking for. And
5-foot trees that'll just all be the same size in 20 and 40 years, right?
Could you speak into the mic, please?
I think that's just repeating the cycle, the
Exactly.
issue that we have,
Yeah.
right? So.
Their goal is to always, you want to get away from an even-aged forest, even-aged management, because if everything's in the same bracket, then they're all going to die at the same time. They're all going to fall at the same time, especially with some of the local trees we have. They're very prone to their set lifespans. So, and to achieve that, we, specialize in staff training, qualifications, make sure we're hiring, skilled employees and training them in the right direction. We've done a number of trainings over the last month, which I'll go over in the Forester's report, that are really tree specific and very valuable, that makes our employees that much better at their jobs. And proactive maintenance of public trees, I think I kind of mentioned that. So, and to get away from just waiting till the trees are dead to remove them or dying, once we catch up, as Tom and I have baked into our budget over the next couple of years, doing a 3-year catch-up plan to get back up on the deferred maintenance. And then once we're there, have sections of the city where we go through on a 5-year basis and trim them all, assess them all, and just have a systematic plan for management. That's, forest management plan, not just managing it reactively. Try to proactively manage the trees we have to have them exist as long as possible. The goal that was set, which is one less than it is now, but still very similar in keeping with what we have, is a 35% canopy cover goal. We're at 36 now, which is pretty good. As we saw in the earlier presentation, we're the same as Palo Alto, which is a very prestigious city. And we're just trying to keep the tree planting going and keep partnering with the volunteer groups like the Friends, who plant a lot of trees, and just try to make sure we keep track of that, so we know what trees we have, and probably do more public outreach and have more maybe tree planting days. Like I know that they do that, but the city should really fund that, and I've been a goal of mine to have like planting parties on weekends or something, but just to maintain what we have and not let it get below. Because if we're at 36 now, and once we start taking out the close to 1,000 dead trees and dying trees, it's gonna bump down a little bit. So we're gonna need to pump that back up with strategic planting. And so this is preserve existing healthy trees and promote preservation and canopy goals. So kind of what I was saying is that, plant new trees when new trees are gone and try to keep what we have as healthy as possible, not knowing the goal that was going to be in the forest management plan or the recommendation. We kind of just I decided to keep it at status quo, keep it at 36. So we went back through the records, how many trees were removed last year. So we were going 1-to-1, and as long as we can keep up with that, especially once all those the catch-up plan starts, we'll have to just increase our tree planting a lot. The next larger goal section is the appreciation and shared stewardship of the urban forest, which really goes to volunteer and community partnerships. And, we want to retain the really important ones we have already, and, maybe find new ways for the public or volunteer groups to help us plant trees and maintain trees. But that's kind of a good goal to have, we really want to keep the public engaged and to feel like they have a part in the forest. And the other part is we don't want to change. We don't really want to, this plan isn't to change the forest. We want to have an urban forest that complements the unique character of Carmel-by-the-Sea as a village in a forest, as a nice coastal pine forest outlook with the beach and scenic avenue. And we don't want to change it. We just want to make it resilient and safe and try to manage the trees as well as we can.
I'd like to ask you a question.
Yes.
So a part of Carmel is being able to see the ocean. So if you have 35% upper canopy.
I said 35% total,
Total canopy.
not upper or lower.
35% what?
Total, everything.
Okay, okay. To me, we also need to be thinking, and maybe it'll come to this, ways that there are more views of the ocean. There were many more views until Friends of the Forest decided there needed to be 3 upper canopy with every lot, which of course doesn't happen. But part of what locals like and tourists are views of the ocean also. And I think we need to start thinking about that also. And I don't hear that when I hear you
Well,
talking
it's
about
where
forest.
we're at now. It's actually less. It's 1% less. So the thing is, we're trying to maintain the trees that are here, and then when they die and fall or phase out or get sick, we're going to replace them strategically with native trees where they belong. Right tree in the right place.
Please go ahead and finish your presentation.
And the last bit that I really took to heart, I really like it, and I think this really promotes the feeling of Carmel, and I had never heard this before. I saw this as recognize trees as essential infrastructure, because especially in this town, they're not just, in someone's yard. It's not just a landscape feature. The way our town is built and these trees are in the street in some places, they really are part of the city, part of the infrastructure like a sidewalk would be. They shade, they cool, and they really make the street meander very specially like it does now. And in here, there's some blue highlighted ones. That was kind of what they had suggested to put towards as topics of the urban or the public meeting, but it got approved. I don't know did we want to talk about that, Tom? Did you guys want to talk about the topics for the public meeting? I think we talked about it last time.
It was in the agenda. It's just approved the agenda.
Yeah.
So that part's done.
Okay.
But you can still go through the blue and with discussion.
Just to get an overview, as we didn't get a chance to discuss it. A big one that's come up multiple times is looking at, again, the designation of upper canopy and lower canopy and whether that makes sense, especially with the way that the density's working right now for development, but also just as a whole, you know, are 3 upper and 1 lower any different, or any, does it make more sense than just 4 trees total? And, you know, keep that in mind, and I, you know, looking at landscape plans and stuff. So that's been a big one that I always thought was interesting, and that's been, that's on it, right? Yeah, that's on the agenda for the public meeting. And then several other things in terms of the risk management, in terms of wildfire response. These ones aren't exactly on there, but we are going to present the community wildfire protection plan, because now you saw it. The former Chief Panholzer was here October, a while ago, but now it's been finalized, and I think it's going to go to council soon. July. And I think it went to council in it's going to council in Monterey in June, so it's getting it's formally adopted. But pretty much those are the main ones. They didn't have a ton. We found more than what they had suggested, and then just kind of not getting rid of the native tree species that, you know, everyone loves, but kind of where they make the most sense in terms of, like, do we need Monterey pines or redwoods in a 3x3 planter downtown? Just kind of looking at the districts, like maybe we need to phase out the larger trees in the downtown district versus maybe they belong better in the neighborhoods or definitely in the parks, but, you know, it's just the conflicts with the existing infrastructure with planting some of these larger trees.
There was clear, we have good data in the community survey about where the large trees should be.
Yeah, and
and it wasn't downtown, and it wasn't in the neighborhoods. It was mostly in the parks and recreation areas, some neighborhoods, right? But if you look, we had clear direction on that, and I also think in the I don't know if you want to go section by section or take comments, or just we can send you comments that if we marked up the draft. But I do think maintenance was such a strong, getting caught up on maintenance, that I think in the really having the maintenance section proactively maintain the trees further up, like the order of these, the order of the, like these sections, I might suggest reordering them slightly, but to pull the maintenance up. Yeah. And we have really good data on the tree inventory from Davy about today, like what % of our trees are dead and what % are in fair condition and what % are healthy and in good condition. So similar to how we have a 35% canopy objective, like a target, right? Yeah. It might be useful also to have targets for these, what % do we want to make sure that we don't go above in terms of dead trees and fair trees, et cetera. Right now we're behind the curve. Yeah. But what would be a percentage that we would like to aim for is when we're caught up and then maintain, right? So we have a lot of data that we could put more objective, like specific goals in here that I think the community would really value. I think that's a good idea. Like just even looking at the data now, and you can make some sort of curve, a decay curve that, the poor trees are going to be very poor or dead within 5 years, and you can I've done that kind of stuff in school, and there's equations for that in terms of forests too. But it wouldn't be hard to build over the next 40 years, right? Like targets. But I think we can. There are places that we can. Well, let me state it this way: where we have opportunities to create objective targets that would be useful, I think we should put them in the plan. Because then that will help drive the execution and the priorities year upon year to make sure that we meet those. Does that make sense? Yeah, totally. And that was one of them. They brought up having every year doing a state of the UFMP report saying this is where we are, this is where our benchmarks, this is where we're trying to get to.
I guess realistically, living document, but something you don't want to be updating every 2 years.
Yeah.
Right? So
So it's more of a, this is the document, and this is what we want to do, and then
here's how we're doing against it.
yeah, we'll do I can do a progress report basically, like, hey, this is the like a Forster's report, but we do the year, like how we do the yearly one, but maybe June or July, end of fiscal year, like this is what we did, this is our percentage, this is where we need to get to. We removed, X amount of dead trees that were there, kind of in especially regarding the goals set forth in UFMP. I think that is a really good idea that
I
was in here.
think it wouldn't be hard to put those in, and,
Yeah.
and there's so much baseline data that we have
Yeah.
from the tree inventory
Mhm.
that Davey
Yeah.
did, that would be the place to start. Like,
Okay.
how do we put those in?
Perfect.
I also think there's an opportunity to include more native emphasis in different places in the document. Like we want to diversify the tree species, but when that tree list came up initially, it's almost as if first priority are natives, and there seemed to be a robust list that we could, and have all the other non-native trees separately. I know that tree species is on the agenda for May 22nd. I'm wondering if it's possible to have a working session on that list prior to the 22nd, where we could take the feedback. It sounds like you have feedback coming from multiple people right now, and anybody that it might be useful to have a working session just on the tree species list, and that's what comes to the meeting on the 22nd.
If I may, I think we're really short on time. The intent to have that on the agenda for the May 22nd is here's a draft, just like Mrs. Billig had comments. Peter had comments a couple months ago. This is a draft. It's different than the existing because it's less narrative. There's more comprehensive. There's more diversity. It has more specific information. But it's only a draft. And the people who show up at that community meeting, please, here's a copy. Please take it. Send it. Mark it up. Maybe we'll hand that red pen. Mark it up. Bring it back. We want your comments, as opposed to trying to resolve all the issues between now and that meeting and pass out a final. It's not yet final.
Because that would just be really kind of tight to get all of you guys and then all the steering committee members.
Yeah.
What is a community meeting, right? So you have an opportunity. Are you going to do a breakout at all? And perhaps that might be an opportunity in those breakouts to just identify, hey, who wants to be involved in the tree species conversation? And here's a bunch of feedback we've already received from the community. Let's kick this around, right?
Yeah.
And I think you guys did something similar to that in the last one. I heard it was productive, so.
Yeah.
Have we got your whole presentation? As I know you're starting to get peppered by with questions, so I want to make sure that we've got your presentation.
I'd like to make a comment, though, because of one you just made. First, I really think it's a good idea to not specify upper canopy and lower canopy, because a lot of lots have just oak trees, but plenty of them. But you're also using that 4 tree per lot recommendation. Or you said 4 trees, and that wasn't a recommendation until around 2000, when a group of 5 men wrote up a new agreement or a new idea of what they thought was needed. And that's, I believe, is the first time it came up with the 3 upper canopy and 1 lower canopy as a recommendation. The thing that makes it tough, I think, is that now we are somewhat concerned, we are concerned about fires, that we just haven't had very many, which is fortunate. And so trees are supposed to be further from the houses than it was considered at that time. In addition, one of the issues we come up with every once in a while, quite often, is neighbor issues with trees. And if houses are a little bit bigger now, they still can't be more than, 1,650 per lot, per 40 by 100 lot. But they were smaller, so there was more room for trees. I think we really need to be much more flexible on the 4 tree per lot thing.
Well, I understand, but that's a comment for the next step, because that's in the code. So
but we can change the code. I mean, we can.
Yes, by all means, but that's a whole nother beast.
But it's a recommendation in the code, remember, it's not mandatory. It's a recommendation.
The planners
The word
use it.
recommendation is very clear.
Is it?
Yeah, it says recommended
Yeah. Yeah.
Then why are we, okay.
And it came out in the survey, and I think there's ways to
Yeah.
integrate it into I think we would be remiss not to have comment related to that in the urban forest master plan, based on the community survey and based on the risk management related to wildfires. You know, when we saw the comments coming back from residents, you know, issues related to getting insurance because of tree, et cetera. I think we would be remiss not to have a comment somewhere in the urban forest master plan related to that.
That makes sense.
Anything else? I'm going to be pretty excited to convince my wife I'm going to a weekend planting party, but we'll see how it goes.
I
We'll
did
see
it.
if she buys it.
I did it with my dad growing up, so I have fond memories of planting trees in George Washington Park and free donuts.
Is there an intention at all to create, I know we've talked about this a few times, to do a survey post this workshop at all, one that was going to be driven just from the city? I'm just hearing, I continue to hear that within the community, that there's some more interest to share, and hopefully, first of all, they'll attend the workshop, but maybe from the workshop there might be some things that are compelling enough to create a survey around.
I just think we're so far along that was just going to push this off really, really far.
I think there might be a misinterpretation between community outreach and, well, this is part of community outreach. The draft, the draft is already on Justin's desk. It's getting very close. A lot of the big technical elements have already been called the chunks. We've already seen a lot of the chunks, not all, there's a few more. We've seen that. This is the community workshop number 2. And as the additional chunks and draft plan comes before the commission over the next several months, those are all opportunities for more public outreach. Before actually the plan has to go to be adopted by the city council. So perhaps after the community's had an opportunity and the commission has an opportunity to digest essentially the final draft plan, I would suggest that's the time. Should we do another community survey at that point, before or after, whatever it goes to the city council? So I think, I don't think we're there yet. That's my opinion. But
Great, that it's still on the table, I think, is
Yeah,
just
it's on the table,
basically
for sure.
something just within the community I continue to hear.
Before it's
so.
adopted.
Right. Yeah, we're trying to get the word out, and we have been for a year and a half, so it keeps going.
Anything further from us before I open up for public comment?
I would just echo Justin. I thought that recognizing trees as essential infrastructure was strategically fantastic, and I
like
think
that a
it
lot.
aligns with what we saw in the community survey. And I think increasing the profile of that up higher in terms of the vision and mission
be
of
like
our
the
document
tagline
but I think it needs to be in the context of the right species in the right place,
Yeah.
right? And we need to be mindful that it doesn't just mean we're going to repeat, you know, reforesting with Monterey pines everywhere, all the same age, and set this problem up for the next generation 100 years from now, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's you can maintain the essential infrastructure, but have that communicated in a way that's appropriate for where the forest and where our village is today. Does that make sense?
Well put.
Yeah.
Great, well then, I'll go ahead and open it up for public comment. If there's anyone here in chambers that would like to make a comment, please come up to the podium.
Well, I'm Scott Lonergan. Hello, commissioners, staff. So I guess my main topic I wanted to make a few comments on is the upper canopy question, if it is a question. I really appreciate what I heard you say, Justin, verbally. It was less clear to me in the language of the draft document, kind of where we stand on the upper canopy. And I've sort of left wondering, is there a goal we have for maintaining, just broadly speaking, our upper canopy in the city? It's such a distinctive character of the town. I mean, you hear this a lot. I mean, you can point to previous documents that talk about this, how important the upper canopy is to the city's unique character. For example, in the, let's go to the, lost my spot here. This is from the shoreline management plan. They're talking about the view from the bluffs and the ocean and through cypress boughs are a unique visual component of the city's shoreline. So that's where it's called out there. In the 2000 Forest Management Plan, there was a very explicit goal about preserving and enhancing the city's legacy as an urbanized forest, primarily Monterey pine, coast live oak, and Monterey cypress. Those are obviously a lot of upper canopy trees. And what's unclear to me now is if we're doing anything to sort of maintain some amount of upper canopy trees. It's such a distinctive part. I hear that from friends that visit. I hear it, why did people move here? That's part of the element of seeing those somewhere. And so I have a little, I guess that's the main comment I wanted to make, because I think we need to be a little more explicit about what we're trying to achieve. If it's maintaining what we have, that sort of addresses it in my mind. If we're leaving it too open, then it seems like there's a good chance we would see a huge reduction ongoing reduction in our upper canopy, certainly that I've seen in the 8 years I lived here. And I'll maybe just make a couple specific thoughts related to that. Management is, we could do some closer monitoring of that inventory specifically. It's such an important infrastructure asset that we have, is having that in our view shed. And so I think monitoring the inventory in that specifically, inspecting those more intently than the other trees. Those are the ones we want to inspect for structural integrity. That's a safety issue. We may do this already, but I think calling it out again would be an important thing. Performing preventative pruning and maintenance, and then adding upper canopy trees into priority locations. I mean, you've kind of talked about some of these things, but it's a bit unclear to me if we have any specific goal around it, or if we have objectives and say like number of trees and things like that. So that would be a thought to try and get some increased emphasis on that in the plan. It was de facto included in the former plan because there was so much priority put on the pine and the cypress. But if we're going to start considering near natives and other natives, which maybe we should, maybe we use Catalina ironwood or something like that, we should call those things out more specifically. Thanks.
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate it. Anyone else from chambers?
Hi, thank you, commissioners, staff. This is Peter Quintanilla, part of the steering committee. I just want to echo what the gentleman just said, that it'd be good to decide what percentage of upper canopy trees we want. This way we know, and then if we try to reach that goal or we cut back. I don't think we're at that point yet. And also to emphasize that Monterey pines can be a safe tree in any location, either in a downtown or in the city. It's just you have to manage them. And a lot of times what people feel that they have to be pruned in a certain way to allow wind to blow through them, but actually trees do better with more branches. And so just educating the public, especially the residents who have Monterey pines, and showing them what's the best way to manage them. And that's going to be through a community outreach, which I'm hoping to work with Justin on, and Friends of Carmel Forest. I did have a comment about the meeting on the 22nd, if I can talk about that.
It's associated with it.
Yeah,
please.
I'm hoping to give just a few-minute presentation on a tree walk we're going to have on Scenic. And all I need is a few minutes to present that to the community. And also, one of the points was educational outreach programs for the community. Also, if I can work with Justin in having a little survey to see what the community wants to learn more about the forest or individual trees. And this way we can plan to have these workshops or talks for the community.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, item number 6 on the agenda for that meeting.
Yeah.
We call it Scenic Road Trees as presented by Friends of Carmel Forest.
Right.
Is that sufficient title?
Yeah, how many minutes do I have?
It's based on what we talked about last time.
Exactly.
We have 10 topics in 2
Yeah, I know.
hours, so.
5 minutes?
Yeah,
Yeah, I think 5 minutes would be great.
Yeah, it's all I need is 5 minutes.
Yeah.
yeah, we plan on that.
Okay, good.
You're going to talk fast.
Thanks, Peter. Appreciate it. Anyone else from chambers? It doesn't look like it. Anyone online? There's a hand that went up.
Yes, Professor Beach, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not used to this Zoom format, so I apologize. And I also apologize that I think this may be the first Forest and Beach meeting I've been to in a decade. And so I'm going to be not up to speed. But I just wanted to compliment the proposal before us. There's a lot of great goals in here having to do with, of course, maintenance and monitoring, just increasing our attention to all of this. And I came onto the meeting just now hearing the tail end of that those beautiful accounts of the eyewitnesses to the forest before the development of the town. And it leaves me just with a few questions. It sounds like they're echoing some of the questions other folks have. I'm kind of wondering why folks have felt compelled to share stories like those eyewitnesses. I'm wondering whether there are remaining doubts in the commission about the facts of the fossil record of our ancient forest, that it is what they call scientifically a Monterey pine plant community. That doesn't mean, of course, it's all pines. It just means it's dominated by pines with oaks, cypress, other minority species that have been mentioned. I also saw that throughout the document you all are discussing for this item, that it's called an urban forest. And I know that others have brought this to your attention, but that is not the technically correct name for what we have here. It's, of course, a village in a forest, but maybe it's better said it's a forest that now has a village in it, meaning that it is a pre-existing forest that has been urbanized, and the intention of the founding fathers of the town was to urbanize it very sensitively. So I'd love at some point, I'll come to the workshop and maybe it can be explained there, whether that's still somehow in doubt. I also wondered whether there were any remaining doubts about the resiliency of our native species, because of course the pines alone have been in California for 15 million years, have recently survived, if you can call it recent, 11 mini ice ages with warming periods, of which this is one, the one we're in now. So I guess my request is, echoing other folks, is when we go to this workshop, could we see just the original forest ecological composition, so that as we discuss the proposals from the consultants, et cetera, how we can see more clearly as the public how we diverge from that original ecosystem. If you're looking for that study or don't have it ready at hand, you know, it's readily available on page 140 of the wonderful Coastal California's Living Legacy book about our forest. And again, I just want to express my appreciation for all the great goals for maintenance and monitoring, and just hoping we can address that one missing piece, which is a species-related piece, just like has been brought to our attention by the commission members there. So thanks so much.
Thank you for your comment. Doesn't look as if we have any others, so I'll go ahead and close the...
Actually, Linda Smith.
I'm sorry, Linda, I missed your hand.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
I just want to thank Professor Beach for her comments, because this is what Monterey Pine Forest Watch has been so worried about, is the introduction of non-native species into an ecological community that is just world famous, and especially to Carmel, since it's been kind of a trailblazer as an ecologically sensitive community from its very founding, and has a message, I think, for the world that's pretty special. And I think I hate to do anything to hurt our larger forest or to hurt our cultural landscape, because the Monterey Pines were beloved by all the people who founded Carmel. And I know because I come from a long line of them. My grandmother settled here in 1905, and of course she put her little cottage in the corner of her property so that she didn't have to cut down any trees. And that was basically the attitude of the people who founded the town, was that they built their village around the trees. The trees sort of came first, and they were Monterey pines, live oaks, and then the rest of the constituency of its understory. A lot of wonderful, wonderful trees and shrubs that we could plant. But Monterey pines are the totem tree. They're the keystone tree. And so we don't want to do anything to hurt Carmel's being or to hurt our larger forest by introducing potentially invasive non-native species. We have to be super duper careful. Okay, that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Linda. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Let's see. So we'll go ahead and close public comment. Wait, I'm back to Chambers. Were you caring to make a comment? I see your hand go up. Would you mind stepping up to the podium if you want to make a comment, please? Thank you. Appreciate it.
The things just one thing I wanted to talk about, and that's non-native, since we're talking about all these things tonight, and we're also talking about diversity. Would you, here, it's probably better if I do this.
Probably just bring the mic close down. There you go.
Okay, didn't seem to work very well last time. Since we're talking about diversity, I think we should really, the public should have an explanation of what you mean by diversity, because it creates a lot of fear and commotion among tree huggers in the community, and there are a lot of them, as I think you know. But I just wanted to mention, I was looking at, again, the tree list and the discussion of diversity and how some current thinking, I won't say all, but there is a degree of thinking that, well, you know, just go out and plant a bunch of different trees and get rid of some of the ones that we think are dangerous. And no one's thinking about what impact that has on the environment, because we have a very special environment here, and it's keyed to the kind of plants that make up the ecosystem in Carmel. And there is an ecosystem in Carmel. Maybe some people don't understand it because they haven't studied it, but it's in existence, and it's extremely important not to destroy it. So just some comments about what people are saying, scientists are saying about, you know, introducing non-natives into a particular forest. And quickly, cause extinction of natives, both plants, animals, decreases biodiversity by the newcomers competing with native plants. It alters the habitat. The non-natives compete for limited resources, and they transmit diseases. A lot of the trees on this list that I looked at fall into quite a number of these categories. So that's why I was wanting to bring all of this to your attention today, because we need to look at that list very carefully. And don't worry, I shall send you some comments. Not that you need more.
Got it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I'm sure your attendance at the workshop will be appreciated. Let's see, so we'll go ahead and close public comment, bring this back to the commission. It looks as if really we were just here to receive the presentation, review it, and provide any last direction as it continues to move forward. So is there anything else that this commissioners, anyone wanted to add? Everyone feels pretty comfortable. Thank you for your presentation, and we'll continue.
Mr. Chair, before we move on, and maybe it's a question for Nova as well, by show of hands, which commissioners intend to be at that public meeting? Pretty much all. So we need to notice it as a special meeting of the Forest Beach Commission, correct?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay.
I think might have done that the last meeting.
I think we did, but
it was a while ago.
Yeah, so we need to do that again.
Same. Yeah.
Okay, just want to make sure. Thank you.
Great, thank you for pointing that out. So we'll continue on with the orders of business, and looks like, Justin, it's still you. We're getting the Forester's report
Back
for
to
April.
me. I had a busy month last month. So in April, Yes, in April, and presenting now in May. We presented to council the 3-year catch-up plan in our budget that hopefully, we have a backlog of over 400 dead trees with a high number of poor and very poor trees, plus 886 stumps. And again, the whole city has not been surveyed, so there is probably more of everything. We went to council over the past several months to arduous process to declare a public tree or a private tree a public nuisance that we got approval on Tuesday night in the wee hours, and we'll be moving forward to have a contractor remove that. We had Arbor Day. Earth and Arbor Day in the park was a huge success. It was really, really fun event. We had over 20 or 30 booths, 37 booths. We planted 2 trees, a redwood tree and a coast live oak as a memorial to Janice Bradner. It was just a really perfect weather. Like, you couldn't ask for a better event. It was really, really fun. I think we talked about it last time, but you can see them now, the rubberized tree wells on San Carlos, a little bit north of 4th, if you want to check them out. They're really, really cool, and they're pretty expensive. It'd be nice to be able to put them everywhere, but we're going to do 2 more closer to Ocean, but they're a cool little option instead of the decomposed granite that we have to keep repairing. But if anyone wants to check them out, they're on San Carlos west side, north of 4th. The tree contractors removed 15 stumps with more issued, and we're getting out with the mid-year budget money, we're going to get out a whole bunch of more tree removals and more stumps going forward, being in next week. Last month, the crew planted 17 trees, picked up 5 very large piles of logs left by PG&E as I don't know if you've seen them around, but their contractors started tree removals again on this last batch of trees. They removed 7 fallen, dead, or dangerous trees, pruned 30 trees, including the trees along the San Carlos paving improvements. I don't know if you've been out to San Carlos recently. It looks really nice. And they ground 2 stumps, putting that stump grinder in action. And then in terms of our training, towards the middle to the end of April, or the end of last week of April, the crew attended a training on electrical hazard awareness and advanced rope rigging, which was really, really good. They really had a good time, and they feel safer. We received 20 permits last month and issued 16. Performed 3 site inspections. We permitted 8 upper canopy removals and 7 lower canopies, and required to replant 10 upper canopies and 5 lower canopies. We actually had more closed tickets in Fresh Desk than received tickets, which is a positive that we're hopefully catching up on that. I believe now the open tickets is only 900 something. Year to date, we've required the replanting of 17 upper canopy trees and 13 lower canopy trees, which is a 46% number of the tree removals process, but that'll pump up because a lot of those were tied to the storms, so there was no replanting required. Any questions?
Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. Commissioners, any questions about the Forester's report?
If I may, Mr. Chair, just on the, I guess the last page, On the chart that says city performed tree work year-by-year comparison, has the yellow and green and red lines. I wanted to clarify something. I didn't realize until I checked Justin's report the other day. I think we've had some inconsistencies in the past. So what that should represent is the city work done by city crews on city trees and by our city contractors' work on city trees. So perhaps the data is a little bit skewed inconsistently over the last couple of years, but it should be both. So I think Justin's trying to make a best guess adjustment.
Have an aggregate of basically work done on city trees total.
Right, regardless of who did it.
Yeah, because it looks like they're working a lot harder in 2022.
Yeah.
All right, well, if there's nothing from the commission, anyone from the public would like to make any comments about the Forester's report? No one from chambers, doesn't look like any hands up online. So we'll close that, and then we'll move on in our orders of business to the Public Works Director's report.
Okay, well, this is going to take a few hours there. Mr.
Perfect.
Chair. I'm going to talk slow just so to give you a little more time.
Didn't we go to 8:30 one time?
We did.
More than one time.
Yeah,
Your
exactly.
anniversary.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, let's see. For the month of April, City Council actions related to forestry, parks, and beach, actually last week, or this week. May the 7th, the council received its first draft of the budget for the next fiscal year, which starts July 1st. As I was telling Commissioner Brzezowski before the meeting, incredible, great news for forestry. I've been here 7 years, nowhere near have a potential authorization for 4 additional staff in 1 year, 3 of which would be in forestry. So the theory here is that one would be an assistant city forester, which we used to have in years past. That position became unfunded along the way. So the work, as you can tell, the workload is only increasing at this point. So it'll give Justin much needed help. Another position is called a forestry, a permit tech. We've had temporary hires to do this work ever since the storms of 2023. Their workload is nonstop. Rather than continuing to hire temporary employees, the time has come to hire a permanent tech. And also, I think Justin mentioned the last couple of meetings, the permit intake came from the planning department. They said, okay, it's enough. It's time for Public Works and Forestry to take over. So that kind of a little bit added to our workload, although it's more efficient in the long run. So it seems like so far we have hopefully a green light to hire a permit tech full-time city employee. A third is another maintenance worker, and hopefully Justin will find something for them to do, like 600 stumps and a couple hundred trees. So that's in addition to the forestry group. This is not a done deal. This is just an introduction, but the fact that we got it through
first review,
That's great.
through several hurdles to get it on the books to show council is a huge achievement. We're also asking for a second project manager because the magnitude of our capital improvement program is so vast. We've been relying on consultants. We have one project manager in-house. We're relying on 3 project management consultants to help us with this huge workload of our capital projects. So that would allow us to phase out the consultants and do more of the work in-house. So banner year for potential staffing. In terms of forestry, the operating budget this current fiscal year is $1.3 million. And Justin and Tom assure me that we will spend $1.3 million without going over by June 30th. Or else. Okay. And
it's going to happen.
And then for next year, it'll be a little bit over 1.5 million. So that's an increase, and it was kind of part of the forestry's report, but we estimated 800 and something stumps plus 1,000 whatever trees, $3.6 million divided. We can't do it all in 1 year. Divided by 3 years, like a 3-year catch-up plan, which was integrated in the budget, which not comparing apples with apples, but the 1.5 million includes that 3-year catch-up plan. Hopefully that gets approved. Also, council tentatively approved a new permit for dead trees. Going back in time a little bit, and this is important, I think, for the Forest Commission to recognize. Before, for decades, it was free. It was no cost for the city forester to go out and take a look at your tree. And the community took advantage of that. And our forester would go out, and every single time, there's still work involved, not just the site visit, but recording it into our iWork system and the tree keeper and talking to the resident or whatever. So it was a freebie until it started getting, can you take a look at my rose bush? And you know what, my door is not closing properly. So it was getting out of hand. So I think it was beginning of this fiscal year or last year. It's a blur.
It was like last year.
Last year we implemented a tree evaluation fee of $200. It will be $200 in July for the city forester to go out, take a look, and if the forester says, it might say the perfectly healthy trees just need some pruning, or if it needs extensive pruning, go in and get a tree pruning permit. The $200 to pay for his time will apply to that larger fee of $600, whatever it is. And then there's also a tree removal permit. So he might go out and, or it's just, they just want to bypass the evaluation and boom, they just want a tree removal permit. That's fine. But up until today, if it's a dead tree, they have to pay $680 or whatever it is for the city forester to go out there. Oh yeah, it's dead, all right. It happens to be laying on the ground, but they have to pay the higher fee. Been a lot of pushback from the community. We recognize that. Our hands were tied once the fee schedule was adopted. So we took advantage of the opportunity for a new redo of the fee schedule. We're proposing a new fee just for dead trees. Of course, if they say it's a dead tree and Justin goes in, it looks healthy as hell. No, so we'll make sure it's a fair, but it gives an opportunity for truly dead trees for the community, because we want them to get rid of the dead trees because it's not helping anybody. So it seems to be a win-win situation, and it seems like council was receptive to that idea.
That should be publicized, Bob, if possible. Like these are the things that community outreach, because that came through in the survey, right? People were looking, people were saying
it's unreasonable.
Everything is unreasonable and expensive,
Right.
and we're just trying to do the right thing, and why am I paying all, right? So I do think that having some sort of,
I agree. I think council needs to approve it in the 1st of June, because
Once it's approved. That should be like front and center in the Friday letter.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, yeah.
It'll probably make the pine cone too.
right, but I just think that but it should be pitched,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Is in response to community input, right? Take the opportunity to demonstrate responsiveness, because that would be really great.
And that's what it was. That's exactly what it was. We already talked about the abatement in the wee hours. And then the last one is Mission Trail Nature Preserve 3 drainage projects. We talked about this before. The 3 projects is some pipes and catch basins in the very south end of Mission Trail near Rear Road. One is a 85-foot elevated footbridge, not a footbridge, a walkway, boardwalk, over a bog on Willow Trail, and another one is it's a swale that's always a high maintenance because the cod sewer trucks drive by and mangle it quickly every time we try to repair it. So this will be it will be in concrete, but it will look like cobblestones on the surface. We got 7 bids, a low bid with no tax on shipping, the low bid with contingency is $433,000. To get this point, we had to get a coastal development permit, a Army Corps of Engineer permit, a 401 certification from the Water Quality Control Board,
DFW,
storm bed alteration agreement from the Fish and Wildlife Service. These permits alone took a year and a half. So it's been almost a 3-year project. Ready to go, went right there. It rolled over a couple of years because now it's all ready to go. A lot of hours, $100,000 has been spent so far, another $400 to finish it. The vote was 3-2. So it was very surprising. It was approved, but the vote was 3-2. So, which Two people thought it was just too expensive and not worthy, or I can't speak for council. It's just, there was some questions. I think that's a little bit disconcerting to staff in terms of trying to do big projects in Mission Trail Nature Preserve, because of what is the council's desire. So anyway, that's what happened. It was approved. We're gonna go build it, so that's good. I hope they're not watching. Commissioner Brzezowski made me say that. Okay, forestry, parks, and beach-related capital projects. We already talked about the Mission Trails. Climate Committee, action items, and climate implementation, a couple things. We already talked about the Earth Day, and really we had Arbor Day for forever, but Earth Day, Community Day was really an outcome of the climate action adaptation plans. And if those who were at the event noticed, we had Fish and Wildlife Service was there. We had safety people. We had sustainability, Carmel. We had all kinds of different vendors out there, more than twice that we had the year before. Really the broad spectrum of sustainability and environmentally sensitive things, and
the Audubon, the marine sanctuary, just all kinds.
It was a fantastic event.
Everyone I talked to just loved it.
Yeah.
And that hasn't been true in the past. It's been kind of a drag. But.
Right. And quite frankly, I went there with my partner, and I said, okay, 1 hour in and out, on Saturday. I was there for 2 hours and just barely saw the whole thing. So yeah, it was great. Great event.
I was surprised Dale didn't say anything when he spoke earlier, but the Carmel Cares cleanup for the zero litter event for the city was paired at the start of the event.
Right.
And so there were probably at least, I think, 70 volunteers that fanned out across the city.
Many of them didn't show up, so that's probably why you didn't mention.
Well, but
they
still,
did collect.
No, but there were like 50, there was a grid.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it all got done.
It all got done. I think they collected 50 pounds, 60 pounds.
70, a lot.
70 pounds.
No, there's less than last year.
Less than last
But it
year.
was also, it was coincided. I mean, I think it was just
No, it was great.
overall,
It was part of the
it was
whole
fantastic,
event.
right?
Yep,
So.
it was great. So that was successful. And then the Coastal Engineering Study Phase 2, remember we kind of covered the 4 parts of Phase 1. We're now into Phase 2. We have a community engagement plan that's required by the Coastal Commission grant, the $500,000 grant. It's very comprehensive. In fact, it's probably more comprehensive than this Urban Forest Master Plan. So the word's going to get out. I took out the part about radio ads. I think that may be overkill, or have a presentation at Bruno's Market, with all due respect to Bruno's, but just very comprehensive over the course of the next 2 years to get the word out about sea level rise, adaptation strategies along the shoreline, beach adaptation. And then as the technical studies of Phase 2 happen, it'll be coming back to the commission. But just the first part was how are we going to launch the community outreach, and that's going to be extensive. Volunteer organizations. We met with the Friends of the Mission Trail Nature Preserve to discuss what we call a Doolittle Bridge and trail realignment. It's where we remove the pump house and the tank, if you know where that is. It's kind of right next to the creek. There's a concrete ford, F-O-R-D, or is it F-J-O-R-D? Is that?
That's a fjord.
What is it?
It's a fjord in Finland.
A ford is F-O-R-D is a concrete. You ford a river, F-O-R-D.
A concrete slab in the river. Okay.
What is it they want?
They want the footbridge that we rebuilt at 11th Avenue for a Christmas present to ourselves and Public Works. We had a team building day. We built the bridge.
So now they want another one.
So something like that, it'd be longer, it'd be bigger, because that's the span across the creek. We would remove the concrete ford, and then we have to just readjust the path, and it's near the Redwood Grove. So it's a bigger project. It's on the potential capital improvement plan for next fiscal year. After what I heard on Tuesday night from council about the other projects being so expensive, I'm a little skeptical, but it's still on the list as a potential
So it
project.
could be a Saturday, Sunday staff project?
Oh, no.
After we plant the trees.
And in fact, this also requires the same permits that the 3 drainage projects.
Wow.
So it's going to be another year and a half.
But
before
where
that
was
is.
the bridge? I can't picture where you mean it.
Do you remember where the big, ugly
Yes,
steel
I
tank
do.
was? Right around the corner, there was the pump house, the stone
Yeah.
pump house.
Yeah,
It was right next to it. There was that concrete slab in the creek,
yeah.
right there.
But you just walk across the concrete slab.
Yeah, right now you walk through a concrete slab, and it's often flowing with water.
Yeah. Well,
So it's slippery.
You
and-
hop over it.
Well, you might have. Some people get wet.
Okay.
So anyway, we talked to their friends. The friends are interested in helping with labor to help. Once the foundation of the bridge is done, they would help build the superstructure. We already talked about the Ocean Avenue Meeting Islands by Carmel Cares. Hopefully you've seen that. They've been planting the last couple days. It looks a lot better with plants than it did just with boulders, but it's really, hopefully you get a chance to look at it if you haven't seen that. And then, last but not least, miscellaneous. Oh, Commissioner Brzezowski agreed to present the results of the Urban Forest Master Plan Community Survey to the City Council. That's scheduled for July. So, and she's also going to do it at the workshop on the 22nd, so she'll be going on the road. Going on the road, sell tickets. We have a new public works maintenance worker, Bo King. He's 25 years, local guy from Carmel Valley with Valley Landscaping and Paving. He personally worked on a lot of homes in Carmel, the hardscape, paver, driveways, retaining walls, landscaping. He knows the village in and out, like the back of his hand. He
lives here.
He lives here, and he just hit the ground running.
Good.
Fantastic hire, so happy. So that's good news. He'll come one of these meetings and we'll introduce him. Martin Way Beach Access Stairs, we completed that. The handrails, one of the handrails was put in last week. It's open, so that went very well. The concrete stairs, the 5 concrete stairs that were completed, it's been open for a month and a half now. We just had some finishing touches, so we're still, as we went through with a fine-tooth comb, and even things that weren't necessarily damaged by the last storm, we're trying to get them in the best shape possible. So we're still tweaking them a little bit. Post and rail cedar wood fence along Ocean Avenue and San Antonio Avenue is done on North Dunes. So hopefully you've seen that.
Yep.
We're starting to fill in the tree wells in downtown with decomposed granite. Wish we could afford the recycled rubberized tire stuff, what I call with special sauce, to keep it in place. But it's just too expensive to do it everywhere, so we're doing adding a lot of DG to a lot of tree wells for safety. And all right, I guess I'll bore you with this last one. Carmel Area Wastewater District has a project called the Bridge to Everywhere. It's the early stages. There's a footbridge. It's a very narrow old footbridge across Carmel River between the Rio Park, which is city-owned park in the county.
Walking with Big Sur Land Trust also.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, Hans knows all about it. And over to the wastewater treatment plant site. So what they want to do is ultimately, they have to rebuild the bridge because it's falling apart, but they want to make trails that ultimately tie into Palo Coronado.
Corona.
Corona.
Yeah, just like it would be a whole lot of a trail network. The trail would extend over the bridge through what is now Rio Park, which we use that site for public works for Justin's logs and wood chips. But we're going to be adjusting where we put our logs and wood chips to allow for the trail. So we coordinated with them.
And material storage and
material storage, right. So anyway, we're working in collaboration with COD, they're our partners.
Good.
and we want to support the project. So we're making initial steps to make that a win-win for everybody. So someday there'll be long interconnected trail network, and it's going to be a ways off to get the bridge done, but that would be part of it. That completes my report. Any questions?
Got it. Any questions from the commission?
I have one. So it sounds like I looked at the budget. It sounds like, for forestry, big win. The staff you've been talking about is in there presently, and there is an increase in budget. What about the beach? The only place when I could see anything for beach was in capital projects, and there was like 1.2 million, but $500,000 was coastal engineering study. So that's the grant, right? That's not the city money.
500,000 is the grant. That's
so
correct.
it's being, even though it's not money it's being counted as city money, even though it's not our money, or it's given to us. Because in the capital projects at a glance, $500,000 coastal engineering study.
Right. That's a plan. That's not any physical improvements at the beach, although
I understand, but I'm just saying, I was just trying to look for beach money in the current budget. And the only thing I could find was this, $500,000 for the coastal engineering study, $400,000 shoreline infrastructure repair.
Correct.
$250,000 shoreline wall at 4th Avenue outfall.
Okay, so the last two will be combined. That's $650.
But those.
So 400,000. The first one is to physically. It's to design, to get environmental permits and physically repair those two structurally damaged stairs.
The 650.
The 400.
Which was the first number?
So one number, I was just confused because the 500,000, I thought the city was not paying for that. I thought that money was coming from the state.
That's correct.
So this is just money being allocated given to the city for this.
Right. Right. It's a carryover capital project for that 500,000.
Okay, but it's not money that we can divert to something else.
No.
Okay. So how about the 400 and then we have the 400 and the 250 for those infrastructure projects?
Okay, so the 400 is for the stairs.
Mm-hmm.
The 250 is to design the worst seawall, which is the 4th Avenue. It's a drainage outfall wall.
Oh, yeah.
But remember, we have 11 walls on the beach. One is in really bad condition, and that's that one. That one's in high jeopardy for physically falling apart. So that will get us through the environmental and the design for that wall. That does not include construction. I think I budgeted $750,000 for reconstruction of that wall in the following fiscal year.
So
but that's it for the beach, yes.
But so that 1.2 million is all environmental engineering studies. There's no money we're gonna see directly improve anything on the beach next year.
Just the stairs.
Okay.
Oh, it depends on how soon we get the grant, how soon we get the permits.
Because it may take
year.
that 400,000, right? So I was just trying to get a sense for what our beach money was.
If we get the permits in a day, then we'll go right out to bid and get the stairs fixed.
And are you happy with what's in here for the beach right now? Because this is our opportunity to go to. I think comments are being requested until May 15th. So is this should we be asking for more for the beach? Are you?
That's a question for the commission. Okay. There's a budget workshop on the 21st.
Right, but the only questions they're going to address in that workshop are questions they get by May 15th. So as commissioners, this is why I'm raising this. Are there things is there money that should be in the budget for the beach that's not in there presently? It looks like on forestry we did pretty well so far, but are there things relative to the beach that?
Well, I would think, and to that, I would, wanted to add that I felt like what's missing would be someone that's actually writing grants for you. That's their job. Mm-hmm. I think there's such a big opportunity out there for dollars, and to be able to have the people, I know those that have been working on it and had to do it, hats off to you because it's hard work to do, but to have actually somebody that's dedicated full time should be something that I would have been put on the top of my list in terms of requesting new bodies. And then to the beach, someone no different than having a forester, someone that really is the master of the beach, I think from the studies that we've seen over the last couple of years, is going to be something that someone will be very important to the execution of all of the work that needs to be done. Mm-hmm. When you talk about one of these 11 pieces and it's a $750,000 project, I mean, that's huge. And so having someone that really understands how to get it done, I would think, and it's not a knock on any of the staff, it's just, it's a specialty, like a forester is a specialty. There is that person that's out there, and I would be looking for that person, and I would be fighting for that as, as staff. Yeah, and to Kelly, your point, now is our opportunity as commissioners to make sure that that voice is heard, right? Because we've seen and we hear the costs associated with what's really going to take to get that beach to be where it needs to be, just the stairs alone. And we got to fight for those dollars. So it's a great
Well,
point to
I mean,
bring
it
up.
begs the question of like, I mean, certainly what we've heard for the beach, so far the numbers are, staggering in terms of cost, right? Does it mean that we should be accessing, I agree with you, the grant money, but is there a bond that we should be running in the city for this kind of thing too, to get out ahead of, as opposed to being fully reactionary, right? Just questions.
Yeah.
I think because now is, I will go to the community meeting, right? But the now is the opportunity for us. They're only going to answer the questions they receive by May 15th, I think.
You mean the budget meeting?
In the budget meeting, yeah.
2 minutes in.
Yeah.
So 21st and the 22nd.
They have 2 meetings, but they've said, I looked at it, for the 2 meetings, they have question cutoffs for both meetings, right? So you have to have your questions in to be, yeah.
It's good stuff. Any other questions or comments from the commission about the Public Works report? I saw that you had a pretty good distribution for the Big Sur Marathon of wood chips. How's our wood chip supply looking? A lot, pretty substantial. Or is that offered free to whoever's coming to look, or how are you? I know we talked about this before.
It's just hard to make with the liability. Someone has to be there, so we make. You could make an appointment, I think. I have talked to Rob how they do that, but I think it's just more of a staff time liability issue of people out there with the logs and stuff. But we also do use a good amount of it at Mission Trail.
Yeah.
But
I just think of like at the fire station where they set up the sand piles and allow people to, make sandbags, right? I don't know if there's an opportunity for us to designate an area where people can just come by on their own and pick up wood chips, since we have a lot.
We used to do that, but so people would call in, they can, tomorrow at 3 o'clock, whatever time it was, and we'd open it up. But they would come in with like a little pickup truck. It's really for the customer. Great, a couple of shovelfuls of wood chips, which was great, but it got to the point where like we're spending a lot of city staff time to get a shovel full of wood chips. So it really didn't pan out.
Got it.
But if
It's a huge amount, though.
there's a huge amount.
And I note that you had an employee who had a truck accident. Is he okay, or is she okay?
Oh yeah, it was. Yeah, he's fine.
Okay. Got it. Well, I'll go ahead and open it up to any public comments around the Public Works report. Doesn't look like anybody from Chambers, and looks like our online attendees have gone on to other things, so we'll close that. And then it finishes up our ordinary business and brings us to future agenda items. Is there anything from commission or staff for future agenda? Doesn't look like it. Then if I just have the liberty just to take a few words, keep you at 5:30. I just want to thank the mayor and the pro tem mayor for this appointment, and the city council for supporting it. I came in here pretty much self-served with my volleyball community and wanting to protect the beach and what was going on down there, and I've really come to love the forest and been fortunate to be with all of you and gain this education, which it's been, that's for sure. I didn't actually think of it as I thought of it as civic duty, but then I really realized there's a bunch of people here, and people all have their own stories, and there's been a lot of things that have happened, so it's been good to be with you. I'm gonna miss it, but I got some other things I'm doing, so I might chime in once in a while. We'll see how it goes. Or I'll end up seeing you guys at those planting parties. I guess that's gonna happen. I'm very excited about the existing leadership here, and I know as the nominations come around, the fresh leadership with hopefully, at least my endorsement would be Kelly chairing it and Tamara vice chairing it, that seems to be the cycle in terms of like existing commissioners taking on these leadership roles and then welcoming new folks in and getting them up to speed so that they can enjoy that same type of opportunity. This has been a lot of fun, and I wish you all the best. Yeah, with that,
Same to you.
we'll adjourn.
Thank you, JC. Thank you.
Good job.
It is a big thank you.
Yeah, no, I'm just retiring from this. Yeah, I have a full-time job, and I've taken on a couple board positions within my industry that have just been, I keep looking at all the dates, and they're just pulling me away.
You're going to be at those
so.
meetings, right?